Greetings and welcome to the lab. I just wanted to give a sort of a quick account of a project I did. I'm sorry I didn't record the whole thing start to finish, but I didn't know if it was going to work or not, and frankly the last couple of trying to fix videos I did kind of ended up in failure, but this one has actually ended in success. And this is a traffic light. It's a green traffic light that a friend of mine acquired when he, I guess, ran into one of the guys up on a cherry picker replacing the traffic light. And he was, as I understood it, the exchange was something like, "Oh, what are you doing? Replacing the traffic light. Oh, is it dead? Yeah. Can I have it? Sure." And so he got the light, and he's had it for a few years. And we were talking about it, and he said, "Do you think you could fix it?" And I said, "Well, I'll give it a shot." As it turns out, there is a tremendous amount of circuitry up in here, and I suspect, though you can look up the documents if you want to. I've got a picture of the information, sorry, right down in here. You don't have to read it upside down. I'll just put the picture up. You can go look that up if you want to. But my guess, because I can see little antennas on the circuit traces on the back of the board, that it's actually got some kind of radio circuitry in there. So I don't know if it's phoning home to say I'm not working anymore, or kind of like the Homer Simpson everything's okay alarm. Just kind of constantly or periodically phoning home to say, just checking in, I'm still alive, and then when it stops getting that, I don't know. I don't know if somebody knows, please put it in the comments down below. I'm sure there are some people that'd be interested. But after trying to figure out the circuitry and getting a couple of resistors, because I saw one of the resistors was burnt, ordered up some resistors, which would actually be this particular resistor here. I ended up realizing it's got this little daughter board thing for connecting some other kind of option, and I happen to have a circuit board that fits perfectly in there. And I said, well, why don't I just build a power supply, an alternate power supply, and just hack in and run some wires to where they need to run. And that's what I did. It's a very simple power supply. It is a voltage dropper followed by a bridge rectifier and a filter capacitor, and there's some interesting things that happened along the way. I tapped into the original capacitor, which was up here, which is actually this one here, and I had everything working, and I decided before I give it back to my friend, let me give it a stress test, run it for a couple hours, and see what happens. Right, we get a nice if I've done this right, we get a nice green light. If not, we get magic smoke. Let's see what happens. I've got it on a switch, so hopefully... Oh my God, it worked. Oh my God, it worked. It's alive. Ran it for a couple hours, it was still running. But then this is what I ended up with, and I'm hoping you can kind of see that. The capacitor vented. So next thing I did was, I was like, okay, well, I don't happen to have that capacitor in stock with my spare parts. So I was trying to figure out, where am I going to find a capacitor? I don't want to order it and wait for it and all of that. And it occurred to me, I've got some stuff ready to go for e-waste. And this is a power supply from an old server. And so I just started harvesting parts off of it and ended up with a couple of these capacitors, which are a little bit larger in value. I calculated the value that I actually needed for this power supply, and it turned out this was insufficient, which may be why it vented, or it may have already been weakened, and that may have been part of the reason why it wasn't working to begin with. It was not, if I go back and look at the pictures, I'll see if I can dig one up from pictures I've taken as I've been doing this, but I don't think it was previously vented. So I think it vented while I was testing it on that stress test. But this appears to be working fine, and I put it in, but then I noticed when I went and tested it after I got this hooked up, well, let me see. I want to demonstrate this for you, but I got to finish telling the story. I got it all hooked up. I put the capacitor in, I plugged it in. It worked beautifully. So I was like, cool, now I can stress test it. I unplugged it, and I was walking away from where I had plugged it in just temporarily, and I realized it was still on. So it turns out that this takes a little while to discharge, and without a discharge resistor, it takes forever to discharge. And I literally was able to take something with insulation, and I ran it across the leads of the capacitor, and I got a good spark out of it. So I'm glad I didn't touch it. Just so fair warning, if you mess around with anything that has to do with AC or a big capacitor like this, you could end up with a charge still on the capacitor. So I, again, did the research. I mean, I have a background in electronics, but it's actually low power electronics. This is higher power. This is mains voltage. Step down to 60 volts in case you're curious. There are 120 LEDs here, wired up as 20 sets of 6 in parallel. Which, if you work it out 20 times about 3 volts per LED, is going to give you 60 volts. So that's what this power supply is doing, is converting 120 volts AC down to 60 volts DC. Fairly simple. I put the metal oxide varistor in there for surge suppression, just a discrete bridge rectifier. I'll give you a close-up of that. But that's, it's all together now, and it's had a chance to discharge for a little bit. I'm going to go ahead now and turn it on so you can see it, and you'll see it come on. It'll take a moment to come on, and then when I turn it off, it'll take a moment to go back off. That's the discharge resistor doing its job. So here we go. And that's swamping it out a bit, but now if I turn it off, you'll see it'll go off gradually. Takes a moment to discharge, but I've calculated it's about 45 seconds for it to fully discharge that capacitor, which should be fine because this is all going to get sealed. I have all the rest of the parts. I'm going to put this back together so I can give it back to my friend and let him enjoy it. I don't know what he's going to do. We did talk at one point about, wouldn't it be cool to take a traffic light and use it as an uplight for a tree? That would be kind of cool. We're not that far past Christmas. We're about a month. Actually, yeah, it's January 25th as I record this, so we're a month past Christmas, and that was, there's still some people with Christmas lights out. That's what inspired us. So we'll see what he comes up with. I'll maybe tack that on the end of the video if he comes up with something interesting, or maybe I'll do a follow-up just to show you. But let me finish putting this back together. Alright, folks, I've got it set up on a stand here so we can see what it looks like. Let me actually kind of take you around it. I'm going to pick up the tripod there. But that's what the assembled unit looks like, in case you've ever kind of wondered. That's those two little balls there. That's part of a CD rack, which just was a convenient way to prop it up. But interestingly enough, if I come around the side here, you can see that actually it's angled. That's kind of interesting, but I guess it makes sense. I'm guessing the thinner angle there is for the bottom of the light, so it actually projects back down to the street. But let's put you back down so I can flip the switch and we can take a look at this together, because I haven't turned it on since I put the diffusers on the top. Let me zoom in. So let's zoom in. Ooh, right up close. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. That's pretty cool. Let me see if I can angle that back down to the camera a little better. Move myself around the camera. Sorry, garage is full of junk. Garage is where the lab is. So, oh, there we go. That's even better. Wow, that's right up close and personal. Let me back out a little. But wow, that does look good. I'm proud of myself. I think I'm entitled to be proud after so many failures. I know I've got the capability to fix things. I fix all sorts of other things, and I do have a background in electronics, I promise you, but I just had a few failures. So maybe this is the beginning of me being able to fix things in the lab. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. Thanks so much for watching. That is on, but now the really weird thing, I'm going to turn it off, and you see it's still lit, and I'm going to reach for the plug here, and you can see it is now unplugged. It is still lit, and it's unplugged. That is an issue with the capacitor still holding a charge, so I need to add a discharge resistor so it will discharge quickly. Otherwise, potentially, if you grab the plug and touch these two leads, which I'm not going to do, well, actually, I got something here with an insulated handle. Let's see if we get, it's still lit. Let me turn this light off so you can see it's still lit. I'm going to try and discharge here. Okay, no shock on that, but if I put this across the capacitor, there should be a spark. Or there could be a spark. Yep, there was a spark. So you can see how dangerous that could be. So I'm going to add a discharge resistor to this so that it will discharge on its own, so there's no chance or minimal chance of getting a shock through the plug, or if you happen to open it up and touch the capacitor.